I will never forget that Sunday afternoon. We were at the table, all gathered to celebrate my youngest daughter's birthday. My mom, who had always been the first to remember every name, every date, and every story in the family, fell silent. She looked her granddaughter in the eyes, smiled, and after a few seconds of discomfort, she asked, "What is your name, my love?" A strange silence fell over the table. We all looked at each other, not knowing what to say. I tried to make a joke to ease the tension, but deep down I felt a knot in my stomach. It was not the first time she forgot something, but it was the first time she did not remember such an important name. That night, when everyone left, I stayed wondering if this was something normal for her age or if there was a more serious problem. In the following days, more things started to happen. Mom would leave her keys in unusual places, forget to turn off the stove, and repeat the same story several times without realizing it. Each new forgetfulness felt like an alarm bell that I could not ignore. As a family, we were worried, but also confused. Was this the beginning of something irreversible or just little slips of age? We decided to take her to the neurologist. I remember she was nervous, as if it were an exam she might fail. In the waiting room, she held my hand and said softly, "Daughter, I am afraid they will tell me I am no longer good for anything." Those words broke my heart. But what we did not know at that moment was that this visit would be the beginning of a very positive change. That day, after examining her and doing some tests, the neurologist explained that her memory could still be strengthened. And before we left, he taught us a very simple technique that only takes 1 minute a day. A technique so simple that at first we did not give it much importance, until we started to see the results. Stay with me until the end of this video because I want to show you exactly what the neurologist taught us, step by step. If you have a father, a mother, or a loved one who is starting to forget things, this could help them. And before we continue, tell me in the comments how many years old you are and where you are watching me from. I love knowing from which places in the world this community is reaching me. Forgetfulness is like a shadow that arrives slowly. It does not appear suddenly. It does not settle in from one day to the next. At the beginning, it seems like a simple oversight, leaving the keys on the table instead of hanging them in their place, forgetting where the glasses were left, repeating the same question twice in less than 1 hour. We all do these things sometimes, and that is why it is easy not to give them importance. Memory changes over the years. Neurologists explain that after 60 or 70 years, the brain processes information more slowly. This does not mean that the person loses intelligence. It means they need more time to find their memories. Like when you look for a book in a huge library and no longer remember which shelf it was on. Sometimes you find it quickly, sometimes it takes a bit longer. That is why it is important to distinguish between what is normal and what may be a warning sign. Forgetting a name from time to time is normal, but forgetting it again and again, or not remembering it even with hints, can be a sign that something else is going on. Losing your keys once is a simple oversight. Losing them every week and finding them in strange places, like the refrigerator or the clothes closet, is something that deserves attention. In my mom's case, the first forgetfulness episodes were small. One afternoon, she called me on the phone to ask what time I was coming to visit her, and 2 hours later, she called me again to ask me the same thing. At first, I thought she was distracted, but I started writing down each episode. Over time, the list grew. It was not just one day. It was an accumulation of days that started to worry us. I remember one morning when I found her ready to go out with 2 sweaters on and mismatched shoes. She herself laughed, but then she told me softly that she did not understand why she had done it. That mix of laughter and worry was, for me, a clear sign that we needed to act. Another day, she forgot that she had left water boiling on the stove, and we realized it because it smelled burnt. It was a scare that made us see that this was no longer something minor. Neurologists say that when forgetfulness interferes with daily activities, when it affects the way you cook, drive, pay bills, or maintain your relationships, it is time to see a specialist. Understanding this was key for us to stop justifying each lapse as something normal and to seek professional help. Memory deterioration is like a very slow downhill slope. You do not notice it at the beginning, but if you do nothing, there comes a moment when the decline speeds up. That was our big lesson, not waiting until it was too late. If there is something I discovered in this process, it is that forgetfulness does not affect only memory. It also touches the heart. My mom, who had always been a woman proud of her sharp mind, began to feel frustrated. Every time she forgot something important, she became serious, furrowed her brow, and murmured, "How foolish I am." It was painful to hear her say those words because I knew she was not foolish. It was fear speaking, the fear of losing herself. Frustration soon turned into anger. Sometimes she got upset with us, thinking we were making things up to make her feel bad. Other times, she laughed at her forgetfulness, but behind that laughter, there was shame. One afternoon, after a visit from the grandchildren, I found her crying in her room. She told me, "I do not want them to think I am a crazy grandmother. I do not want them to feel sorry for me." Those words stayed with me. It was not easy for us as a family either. Each lapse was a reminder that something was changing. At first, no one wanted to talk about it. We exchanged knowing looks when she repeated a story for the third time, and then we changed the subject to avoid making her uncomfortable. But the silence only made the problem grow. Sometimes I felt as if we were walking on glass, watching every word so she would not feel offended. The truth is that I was also afraid that this was the beginning of something irreversible, afraid of losing my mom little by little. And I will confess something. Many nights I cried in silence, thinking that she would no longer be the same mom as before. Those moments of tears helped me release the pain, but they also made me realize that I had to be strong for her. We learned that empathy and patience are more important than any medicine. Every time Mom forgot something, instead of correcting her harshly, we started to walk with her calmly. If she did not remember someone's name, we gave her gentle hints until she found it. And when she could not, we smiled and told her it was okay. That simple attitude restored her confidence and kept her from shutting herself away in her shame. Forgetfulness is not only a medical challenge, it is an emotional challenge. It requires the whole family to adapt, to understand that the person is not doing it on purpose, and that what they need most is understanding. Little by little, we created a safe environment at home where she could make mistakes without fear of being judged, and that made a big difference. Making the decision to take my mom to the neurologist was not easy. She had always been very independent and proud, and she was afraid we would treat her like a sick person. On the day of the appointment, she got dressed up carefully, as if she were going to an important meeting. She put on her favorite dress, did her hair with care, and told me, "I do not want the doctor to think I am losing my mind." That sentence moved me and reminded me that behind the fear, her dignity remained intact. The office was small and quiet. There were diplomas on the walls and a bookshelf with medical books. The doctor greeted us with a kind smile and invited us to sit down. What surprised me most was that he was in no hurry. First, he wanted to get to know my mom. He asked about her life, her hobbies, her daily routine. It was a conversation that made her feel comfortable before starting the tests. The evaluations were simple but revealing. He asked her to repeat some words, to draw a clock showing a certain time, and to remember a short list after a few minutes. My mom did her best, but she became frustrated when she could not remember two of the words. The doctor reassured her and told her not to worry, that these tests were just a way to understand how her memory was functioning at that moment. After the examination, the neurologist explained that there were no signs of a severe neurodegenerative disease, such as advanced Alzheimer's. He told us about something he called mild cognitive impairment, a condition that can improve with proper habits and mental stimulation. I felt enormous relief. Not everything was lost. There was still room to work and recover functions. What impacted me most was when the doctor said that the brain is like a muscle. If it is trained, it becomes stronger. He explained that even in old age, neurons can create new connections, a phenomenon called neuroplasticity. That concept was a ray of hope for us. It was not just about resigning ourselves, it was about taking action. Before we left, the neurologist gave us practical advice. Maintain a stable sleep routine, walk every day, talk with other people, read aloud. But the most valuable thing was when he taught us a simple 1-minute technique that, according to him, could become a powerful tool to keep memory active. It was so simple that at first I thought it could not be that effective, but we accepted the challenge of trying it. We left the office with a mix of relief and commitment. Mom was smiling, something I had not seen in her for weeks. She told me, "I am not broken, I just need to exercise." That sentence was the beginning of a new chapter for our family. We discovered something fundamental. Just as the body needs to move to avoid getting stiff, the mind needs challenges to stay alive. The neurologist explained it to us in simple words. He said that the brain keeps the ability to create new pathways throughout life, and that this ability is activated when we invite it to work with intention. It is not about doing difficult things, it is about doing them consistently. We started with the basics, reading aloud for a few minutes each day, to force the mind to follow the thread, to interpret and to pronounce. Active conversations, not monologues. We asked her open questions. What do you think? How would you do it? What does this remind you of? Crosswords and word searches, not to compete, but to enjoy the process of searching and finding. We also practiced remembering small lists, like the ingredients of a recipe, and then repeating them without looking. Sometimes we played with family photographs, naming the person, telling an anecdote, and placing it in time. At the beginning, Mom resisted. She looked at me with a mix of annoyance and tenderness and said, "I do not want to feel like I am in school." She was afraid of making mistakes in front of us, so we changed the approach. They were not tasks, they were moments to laugh, to get things wrong together and try again. I told her no one was going to grade her, that this was for her so she could trust her mind again. We noticed that the best time was in the morning, after breakfast. We chose one brief exercise and one more playful activity. For example, reading a short paragraph aloud and then playing at remembering the shopping list. If on any day she was tired, we shortened the session, but we never skipped it. That gentle discipline, without pressure, was the key. We preferred a few steady minutes instead of long sessions that end in frustration. We also added movement. Walking at a comfortable pace, moving arms and legs, coordinating steps with counting up to 10 softly. Movement wakes you up, and an awake mind focuses better. After walking, her attention was sharper, and the exercises flowed with less effort. There were slow days, days of confusion, of words that would not come. That is normal. Instead of forcing it, we took a deep breath, changed the activity, and came back to it later. Over time, those slow days became less frequent, and something beautiful appeared. Mom started asking for the exercises. She said her head felt lighter, as if a fog were lifting. We realized that exercising the mind is neither humiliating nor childish. It is an act of dignity. It is telling life, "I am still here. I want to remember. I want to take part." That change of perspective prepared the ground for what would come next, the brief technique the neurologist taught us, a resource so simple it fits into 1 minute and that set in motion improvements we could see and celebrate. The technique the neurologist taught us fits into 1 minute and rests on 3 clear ideas: attention, association, and gentle insistence. It works for names, but also for short pieces of information. I will explain it as we practiced it with Mom, step by step and without technical language. First step, attention. When you hear a name, pause for a moment and look the person in the eye if they are present, or look at their photograph if you are practicing. Repeat the name softly to yourself, and then a second time, naturally, inside a sentence. For example, "Nice to meet you, Martha." That small echo keeps the name from slipping past. Second step, visual anchor. Choose a distinctive feature of that person, their hairstyle, eyebrows, glasses, a mole, the shape of their smile. That feature will be the hook where you hang the name so it does not fall. Third step, exaggerated image. Create a simple and fun scene that connects the name with the feature. If the person's name is Rose and she wears a scarf, imagine a huge rose pinned to that scarf. If his name is Leo and he has a mustache, imagine a lion asleep on that mustache. The simpler and more colorful the scene, the better it sticks. Fourth step, spaced repetition within that same minute. Say the name now, say it again a few seconds later while you look at the distinctive feature, and repeat it once more at the end. 3 brief uses of the name, anchored to the same image. Tell your memory. This matters. 5th step, verbal closing. Before you say goodbye or move on to something else, use the name one more time in a short sentence. It was a pleasure meeting you, Rose. That closing seals the work of the minute. When there is no one in front of you, we practice with family albums. Mom chose a photograph, said the name, looked for a feature, invented an image, and repeated it 3 times in 1 minute. If she did not remember the name, we opened the game with hints. It starts with this sound, it rhymes with that word. We never accepted defeat as the end. We turned it into a bridge for next time. The first time Mom did the technique, she chose the neighbor from the 3rd floor, a kind woman she always greeted without naming her. Attention to her face, anchor in her glasses, image of a rose resting on the frame, brief repetition. That same afternoon, when we met her in the elevator, Mom smiled and said, "See you later, Rose." The neighbor was delighted, and my mom was too. That small triumph was worth gold. It was not magic. There were days when the name would not come, and we would repeat the minute without anger. But the sum of steady minutes, without rushing and without judgment, began to bear fruit. What had once slipped through her fingers like water now had something to hold on to. That changed her mood. She felt like part of conversations again, and we understood that memory, when treated with respect, responds. 1 well-used minute, repeated every day, opens a door that seemed closed. The first weeks were a challenge. Sometimes Mom was tired, other times she seemed to remember nothing of what we had practiced the day before. But little by little, we began to notice signs that something was waking up in her mind. It did not happen overnight, but it was visible enough to give us hope. I remember a very special moment. We were in the hallway of the building when we ran into the neighbor from the 3rd floor. Mom looked at her, smiled, and said clearly, "Good morning, Rose." That was the first time in a long while that she called her by her name without me having to remind her. Rose was surprised, smiled back, and they stood chatting for a while. It seemed like a small detail, but for us it was a huge victory. From that day on, progress became more frequent. One afternoon, while she was making tea, she called me by my full name. I stood still for a few seconds. She noticed my face and said, "What is it?" "I've always called you that." But I knew that for weeks she had been confusing me with my sister or simply saying, "daughter." I could not stop my eyes from filling with tears. The day she called me by my name again, I cried with joy. It felt like recovering a small piece of her that had been hidden. She also started taking part more in family conversations. When the grandchildren came over, she no longer stayed silent, just listening. She started to ask them questions, to tell them old stories, and most importantly, to remember their names. At the beginning, she did not always say them correctly, but every success was celebrated as a victory. That shared celebration motivated her to keep practicing. The neurologist had told us that what mattered was consistency, not perfection. And he was right. Each memory recovered was a sign that her brain was responding to the effort. Even her mood improved. She laughed more, got ready to go out, and once again chose her clothes with care. It was as if her mind were saying, "I am still here." These first changes taught us that it is worth insisting, that daily work has its reward. Above all, they gave us the strength to keep moving forward to the next step, transforming not only her exercises, but her entire lifestyle to give her memory the best possible chance. The neurologist was clear from the beginning. Memory does not live isolated in the brain, it depends on the whole body. What we eat, how much we sleep, and how much we move have a direct impact on mental clarity. So we decided to make changes at home. We started with food. We cut down as much as possible on ultra-processed foods and added sugars and increased fruits, vegetables, fish, and nuts. The doctor especially recommended foods rich in omega-3 and antioxidants, such as salmon, walnuts, blueberries, and spinach. He explained that these help reduce inflammation and keep neural connections healthier. At first, Mom complained because she missed her usual cookies, but little by little she got used to the new flavors and even started asking for salads. Sleep was another important pillar. She used to go to bed late watching television and got up several times during the night. We set up a relaxing routine: dim lights after dinner, soft music, no screens for 1 hour before going to bed. Within a few days, she started falling asleep more easily. Sleeping well improved not only her memory, but also her mood and her energy in the morning. Daily movement was key. We are not talking about intense exercise, but about walking at a comfortable pace, stretching, moving her joints. At first, it was 10 minutes twice a day, and then we gradually increased the time. Walking cleared her mind and helped her sleep better. Besides, we did it together, which turned exercise into a moment of connection. We also organized the house to support her independence. We labeled jars and drawers, put reminders in visible places, and created a schedule with daily activities. All this reduced stress and avoided unnecessary arguments. These changes became a family routine. They were not just for her. We all joined in. That way she did not feel different or sick, but part of a team. The result was remarkable: more energy, less anxiety, and a memory that kept improving. We discovered that taking care of the brain is an all-round act. Mind, body, and environment must work together. Very soon, we understood that Mom's memory could not recover if she was alone on this path. The whole family had to get involved. It was not just about her doing exercises or eating better. It was about creating a supportive environment that kept her motivated and accompanied. We began to transform our family gatherings. Before, we talked about anything, and she ended up silent, just listening. Now we invented memory games to include her. One of the favorites was Who is Who with old photos. We took out the album, chose a photo, and asked her to tell us something about that person. Sometimes she remembered details that no one else knew, and she felt proud to share them. When she did not remember, instead of correcting her harshly, we gave her hints. She was your childhood neighbor, the one who had the white dog. And little by little the memory opened up. The grandchildren joined in too. They learned to be patient and to turn practice time into something fun. They played at making up short stories and then seeing whether Grandma could repeat them. It was not about tests, but about laughter. Suddenly, what used to be a problem became an excuse to spend time together. Something important was that Mom never felt we were treating her like a sick person. We did not isolate her. We did not overprotect her. We asked for her opinion in house decisions and gave her simple tasks like choosing the music for the afternoon or checking the shopping list. That participation gave her back her place in the family. Over time, we all understood the great truth the neurologist kept repeating to us: memory does not recover alone, it recovers in community. That sentence became our motto. The whole family became her support network, and that network was as important as any technique or food. Not everything was steady progress. There were days of setbacks, days when Mom was tired, angry, or discouraged, days when she forgot even what we had practiced the afternoon before. Those moments were the hardest because she got frustrated herself. She would say, "What is the point of so much effort if I still keep forgetting?" And sometimes she locked herself in her room and did not want to talk. We learned not to lose heart on those days. The neurologist had warned us that improvements would not be perfect, that there would be ups and downs. So we adopted strategies not to give up. The first was patience. If Mom did not want to do the exercises one day, we let it go and tried again the next day. The second was keeping spirits up. We celebrated every small achievement, even when there were mistakes. It was also important to take care of our own emotional state. As a family, we had to be strong, but not robotic. We talked among ourselves, shared our own frustrations, and that helped us avoid putting all the pressure on her. Little by little, the bad days became less frequent and less intense. The biggest lesson from this stage was understanding that there are no magic solutions. It is not magic, it is consistency. Memory is trained like a muscle, with daily effort and endless patience. Each setback was a chance to practice perseverance, to remember that what matters is not perfection, but steady progress. Months went by, and one day we realized that something had changed in a deep way. Mom was not just remembering more names, her mind seemed more awake in general. She took part in conversations, remembered important dates, and even began to tell stories from her youth that we thought were lost. The 1-minute technique became part of her daily life, almost a ritual. Every morning after breakfast, she did her little exercise. When she met someone new, she paused, repeated the name softly, and anchored it to a fun image. Sometimes she would spontaneously ask us to practice with her, which showed that she no longer saw it as a burden, but as something valuable. Her mood improved noticeably. She laughed more, had more initiative, and went out for walks without us having to remind her. Even her posture seemed more upright, as if her body reflected the new energy in her mind. We continued with medical checkups from time to time to keep track of her progress. The neurologist was pleased with the results and encouraged us to maintain the routine. He said the secret lay in not stopping brain stimulation, even on good days, to keep the connections active. These results were our reward. We understood that although you cannot completely stop the passage of time, you can improve quality of life in a significant way. And most importantly, Mom once again felt like herself. Looking back, I remember the fear of that first day when we thought we were losing Mom forever. Today I can say that this fear turned into a life lesson. We learned that memory can be cared for, that there are simple but powerful tools to keep it active, and that family is an essential part of the process. If you who are listening to me have a father, a mother, or a grandparent who is starting to forget, do not give up. Seek professional help, implement small changes in lifestyle, and above all, accompany them with love and patience. Each small step forward is a victory, and every minute of dedication is worth it. I want this video to be a light of hope for you. I want you not to see forgetfulness as a sentence, but as a challenge that can be faced. If my mom was able to improve, many other people can too. That is why I invite you to share this video with those who need it. Tell me in the comments how many years old you are and where you are watching me from. And tell me if you know someone who is going through something similar. Together, we can create a community that supports, encourages, and shares strategies so that our elders can live with dignity, memory, and joy.